This is the news in brief from the United Nations. UN Rights Chief Michelle Bachelet led calls on Tuesday for Afghanistan's new Taliban leaders to respect the right of all Afghans, with the treatment of women and girls a fundamental red line. Speaking at an emergency session at the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva, a little over a week since the Taliban swept to power, Ms Bachelet detailed credible reports of violations against civilians in areas under their control. This is why the Human Rights Council should establish a dedicated mechanism to monitor the Taliban's implementation of its promises, she maintained.
A fundamental red line will be the Taliban's treatment of women and girls and respect for their rights to liberty, freedom of movement, education, self-expression and employment, guided by international human rights norms. In particular, ensuring access to quality secondary education for girls will be an essential indicator of commitment to human rights.
Ahead of a vote on a draft council resolution calling for accountability for rights abuses in Afghanistan, the country's representative told member states that millions feared for their lives while the humanitarian crisis was unfolding. In Yemen, basic humanitarian needs have soared among displaced communities as fighting continues in northern Marib Governorate. The UN Refugee Agency said on Tuesday that settlements hosting nearly 190,000 people are now beyond capacity. Conditions are deplorable after damage by recent floods and fires caused by home cooking, said UNHCR spokesperson Ekaterina Kitidi.
Clean water, latrines, electricity and health facilities are in short supply. Only 21% of residents are reachable by aid organizations due to the prevailing insecurity, as many people were displaced in the vicinity of active front lines. UNHCR is calling on all parties of the conflict to ensure unimpeded access to the settlements to guarantee the safe delivery of life-saving assistance.
According to the UN agency, close to 24,000 people have been uprooted by armed clashes, shelling and airstrikes in Marib Governorate since the beginning of the year. The region already hosts a quarter of Yemen's 4 million internally displaced people who have sought safety in urban centres and about 150 in formal settlements. To Cambodia now, where the conviction of a prominent human rights defender and 2 of his supporters by a court in the country has been condemned by UN-appointed human rights experts. Trade union leader Rong Chun was sentenced to 2 years in prison last week over comments he made on Facebook about alleged community land loss and forced evictions along Cambodia's border with Vietnam. 2 demonstrators who called for his release a year ago also received sentences of 20 months, said Special Rapporteur on Cambodia, Vitit Muntaborn, in a joint statement supported by 3 other experts who report to the Human Rights Council. The rights experts said they were seriously concerned that the Cambodian government was continuing to use vaguely worded laws to suppress dissent and stifle free expression. Over the last year, Mr Muntaborn said that concerns have been raised repeatedly with the Cambodian government about threats against 25 human rights defenders who have reportedly been subjected to intimidation, violence or detention. Katie Dartford, UN News.